Morning! Hope you're doing really well. I am currently in the Czech Republic where I've been riding gravel all weekend, and oh my goodness, it's been amazing. So nice to get out of the UK as well and do something a bit different. So I'm pretty lucky this month. There's lots of fun events going on. Next week, back in the UK, I'm going to be heading up to the King's Cup, which is the British Gravel Championships. I'm heading there with Strava, and they have asked me to put together a video for you sharing my tips for gravel racing. So I figured I might as well do it here. Lovely location, lots of gravel, nice people around, so let's go. So the first thing I'd suggest before you head off to your first gravel race is to make sure you've done a lot of gravel riding. Woo! You want to get some experience off-road so you don't rock up, feel totally out of your depth. What I like to do is use the Route Explorer on Strava because you can filter it by surface type, so I can look for unpaved or dirt segments and then find myself a new route so I can practice, if you can call it that. I mean, it's just getting more miles in off-road, but it also means that you can try a variety of different terrain, you know, from fast rolling to techie sort of stuff in your local area. So I definitely recommend using the Route Explorer option for that. Not all gravel trails are equal. I mean, gosh, there are so many different kinds of gravel. So it pays to pay a bit of attention to what sort of terrain you are going to be racing on at your target event. Before race day, you should download the route of the race, import it into Strava, and then check that it actually works, that there's no glitches, that you've got the whole route, that everything is going to work turn by turn. Have a look at any segments on the route and check out what kind of gradient they are. That might influence the gearing that you choose for your race. If it's quite hilly, you might need a bigger rear sprocket to make sure that you can get up the hills. If you want to get really tech, you can look at the route on Google Maps and zone in and do street view. So that might inform what kind of terrain you choose to train on and also help influence your decision when it comes to choosing tyre size, tyre width and tyre pressure. It all depends how much time you've got to hand and how much you want to win. When it comes to choosing tyres, there are a couple of things that are going to influence your decision. The number one thing is how wide a tyre you can fit in your frame, how much clearance you've got. So depending on what bike you've got, that could be, you know, anything as narrow as 35C all the way up to 50C and above, you know, really, really wide. Obviously, you don't have to have a gravel specific bike to race gravel, but if you are racing a cyclocross bike instead, you might find that you are limited by the tyre size that you can fit in the frame. There's usually a limit on the tyre size you're allowed to run in cyclocross races. Therefore, frame manufacturers haven't made cyclocross bikes that can fit really wide tyres. As a rough guide, you might want to run something around 40C. I have 44C Radlers from WTB. I absolutely love those, but you might not need something as wide as that if it is fast rolling, sort of flatter terrain. Tyre pressure depends on the terrain, your weight, and also whether you're running tubeless or not. If you're running tubeless, you can run a lower tyre pressure because you eliminate the chance of pinch flatting. So I would only ever run tubeless on my gravel bike, but I get that not everyone has that luxury. I would start at around 30 psi. That's kind of a good middle ground for getting enough grip, but also having a reasonable amount of comfort. But again, it depends on the tyre width and whether you're running tubeless or tubes. When you're selecting your tyre, you're going to want to have a look at the tread pattern. You're probably going to want something that's fast rolling with a bit of tread around the side. So when you're cornering, the knobbles on the tyres kind of dig in and give you an extra bit of grip. When you're training for your race, be realistic about how long it is going to take you. Gravel is slow compared to the road, so you might see that the race is, say, 80k and think that you can knock that out in no time. In reality, 80k could take you a long time, particularly if there's a lot of sort of chunky rocks or a lot of technical climbs, things like that. You might even find that you're walking segments or hiker biking, so just make sure that when you are planning your training around this event that you are realistic about how long it's going to take, and you make sure that you build some longer endurance rides into your training so that you're not going to blow up after like an hour and a half. A really cool way to train for a gravel race using Strava is by using the Segment Explorer. You can filter this, you can look for uphill ones, downhill or flat, and find the stuff that you really want to improve. If you star the segment, it can show up on your GPS device when you get there with the live segments feature, and then you can track how you're doing compared to your previous personal best and compared to other people who've done the climb or the segment. I find it really fun doing this, and it's nice to be able to track your progress. You can log on to your Strava account when you get back and you can see how you've improved or got worse if you've not been training, like me this summer. But you can see all the times that you've hit the segment and see how you stack up against everyone else as well. Before the race, think carefully about what fuel you're going to use on race day. Often there are feed stations and stuff like that, but if you use something that you've not used before, it could very well upset your stomach. So I prefer to stick to the same brand each time I race. You kind of want to have about 60 grams of carbs an hour, whether that's from energy bars or gels or drinks powder in your water bottle. And if you fail to get enough, then it will impact your performance. Race day is not the day to diet, nor are the days preceding the race. If you want to lose weight, that's your prerogative, but don't do it on race day, don't skimp on calories, and don't skimp on carbs in the days preceding your race. In order to be successful on race day, you do need to think about the week preceding, or certainly the days preceding the race. Make sure that you max out on sleep, on hydration, on quality nutrition. You also want to start tapering your training so that you arrive fresh as you can possibly be on race day. So generally I will start doing shorter sessions, but I still include some intensity in that to kind of keep the muscles firing and keep my body switched on. So you don't want to just stop training or riding entirely, because then when you turn up on race day you're going to feel really sluggish. I like to do what's called openers, either the day before the race or 2 days before the race. These are short, sharp, intense efforts that fire the body up, make sure that it's switched on for race day, but they don't fatigue you too much because they're short. Sounds obvious, but of course you've got to make sure that your bike is in top condition for a gravel race. You need to top up your sealant, check your tyres for any wear and change them if need be. Make sure your chain is oiled. It can be very dusty on gravel races or very muddy, so select a chain, oil or wax that is going to suit the conditions of your race. Tighten any bolts so that they don't rattle their way loose, and finally make sure that you pack all the stuff you need for the race. That includes CO2, cartridges and the valve that you know, the thing that you use to put the CO2 in the tyre. And super important, take a tubeless repair dart. I mean, if you're running tubeless, I like the Dyna plug, and I always keep that really handy. Don't have it buried away in your saddlebag, because if you get a puncture and you're mid-race, you just want to grab that thing, shove it in the tyre and keep going. So I hope you found these tips useful. I've got to go and pack my bike, head off to the airport. I will be at the King's Cup British Gravel Champs next weekend, so if you're going to be there too, do come and say hi. If you think I've missed anything or you've got any further tips for the other viewers, do leave them in the comments below. Always nice to hear from you, and I'll see you maybe at the Gravel Champs, but if not, then next week. Bye!